Hey, I'm back. Still September 9th, Monday, 2019. Now you know the rest of the story. We're going to deal with NAFTA Chapter 11 today. And say, why NAFTA Chapter 11? They're negotiating a whole brand new trade agreement. It's going to be the USMCA. Yeehaw. Notice it hasn't come into effect yet. The Democrats, of course, were the American version of liberals, are dragging their feet. The liberals are dragging their feet. I'm going to explain to you why they're dragging their feet. Now, we try to bring it out in highlights when we do our own business, right? So we try to express how government's involvement with industry, where it affects the profitability of a company that wants to do business in the jurisdiction that comes from another jurisdiction that's party to the NAFTA agreement. Hey, you got that? Probably not. Let me try it again. You're a U.S. company, you want to do business in Canada, the Canadian government has enacted a rule or regulation that affects your business or your business interests, or you're a business a company already from the U.S. already doing business in Canada, and the Canadian government enacts rules or regulations that affects your profitability. Therefore, the Canadian government is liable to have to replace that profit that you have lost, the potential profit going forward for however long the court deems reasonable. Does that make sense now? In other words, this was a setup going all the way back to Brian Mulroney's days. So, if you think Brian Mulroney or Kim Campbell were actually conservative, let's think about that for a second. The reason that the party split and we ended up with the Reform in the 90s and the Conservatives is because they weren't conservative. We'd have to go back to the 1979 when Joe Clark got removed as the head of the party, and he got replaced by Mulroney when we had different people parachuted in to split the vote. So, yeah, that's kind of what the same type of argument that the PPC people are trying to use today, except for totally different circumstances. So income, Mulroney was more or less just an extenuation of the Trudeau agenda, sort of like what you've seen in the U.S. when you went from Bush Senior to the Clintons, from Clintons to Bush Junior, from Bush Junior to the Obamas. That was supposed to be the Hillary Clinton administration following that. Canada's administrations have followed along the same type of linear pathway, where it doesn't matter who we voted at what point we voted them. They ended up having pretty much similar policies and following the same path of the elites as they went along. So the guidance didn't come from the Canadian people. The guidance came from people above them. So NAFTA came into effect. NAFTA was this great transfer of wealth, or transference of wealth. The problem is that where the Americans like to say that we lost so many jobs to Mexico, or Mexico lost, Canada, they lost so many jobs to Canada, and vice versa. We like to blame each other back and forth. NAFTA Chapter 11, which even the media very seldom ever speaks about it. Canada is the only one. Canada's country did the litmus test on it. So the litmus test was we were challenged 12 times under NAFTA Chapter 11. We lost all 12. Which means companies that either wanted to do business or were doing business in Canada due to the changes or the regulations or rules that were put in place by the Canadian government were either deemed to lose profits, right, or be unprofitable. Therefore, the Canadian government, the Canadian people, we've had to replace those profits. Mexico, under the same rules, was challenged 4 times. They lost 1. The U.S. was challenged 4 times. They lost 0. So let that sink in for a second. Here we have a country that has lost 12 challenges out of 12. So we're the perfect litmus test, or patsies, whatever you want to call it. So along comes, I've pointed out that in the oil and gas industry, I put NAFTA Chapter 11 as a section in there so that people could try to start to get their minds around how it works. The government comes in and the government colludes or enacts rules or regulations or creates a situation where the profitability of the industry, right, or the people involved in the industry that are maybe foreigners, but if those foreigners are part of the NAFTA agreement, are therefore the country, the people of the country, the Canadian government, being the people, are now liable to pay back the lost profits or the potential lost profits as identified as who? The people making the complaint, not the government. The government gets to defend that. So I keep pointing that out when it comes to the collusion when we're dealing with my stuff, my field service management system, how the government got along, they colluded, they created an extortion. The extortion on the industry created a scalability problem, which we're seeing right now. We're about to really see it, right? That we can address that. Luckily, as soon as we get past this liberal horseshit government maybe we can get together with an industry that wants to actually fix something. We can fix it. But so that's where we're kind of at with to show you how that worked. Then we said, okay, if we go back even further, we look at the way that the system pays, or the way that the oil and gas industry pays. Picking on the oil and gas industry here for a second, guys, because it's actually, it's outside of banking, it's the largest industry in Canada. So we say, okay, this is how this is how it pays. So we pay you 60, 90, 120 days, 180, 200, never, whatever, right? That's how we're going to pay you. Again, this goes to live. You can't keep your services around. The scalability, the reliability, the profitability, all goes out the window, right? The industry at some point gets in a position where it's got to scale up businesses. There's nobody to scale up the business. Now it's outside of the NAFTA Chapter 11 rules. Because why? The government's allowed this to happen, allows it to exist outside the regulations, the rules and regulations that exist in government. So there's the problem when the government either abdicates, obfuscates, or includes, or just blatantly corrupt, right? You end up with a situation where your government is now under NAFTA Chapter 11. Right, has not just allowed the money, because in Canada it's more fun in Canada. Here, this is the entertainment part. If you guys haven't been entertained yet, here, let's entertain you. So here you have one of the highest tax jurisdictions in the world. You're the sixth largest economy, the smallest population base. The next 50 largest economy have larger population bases than you are. You have shitty infrastructure. I'm a Canadian. Don't get me wrong. I know what it's like. The infrastructure sucks. So why is that? How is that possible? Well, it's possible because we allow our money to leave the country. Our foreign ownership levels are 85, 90%. And with our dividend policies and our taxation policies, we allow that money to leave the country. So if you allow 85, 90% of your money to leave the country, we're going to make it up. That's tax-free. It's not leaving. They're not taxing it. It's leaving. Goodbye. Where's it going? It's going to the elites. And again, we've gone back in another parts of this series, and we've explained to you that back in 08, 09, when the bubble collapsed, what happened? You had quantitative easing, or QE, the QE programs. Pretty soon, there was so much quantitative easing that, the entire world, every mortgage in the world could have been paid off. Instead, what did they do? They gave the money to the banksters. The banksters bought down their debt, spread the money into the corporations. Corporations, right, bought back shares. Who ended up owning the shares? You look around, doesn't matter if Canada where you are, right? The banksters own everything. That's the elite. We like to call them the elite. Well, these are your banksters. So now they own it. Where'd they get the money from? They got the money from you, from the people. That's kind of cool, isn't it? So the people paid to get screwed. Now, after 11, let's get back on topic. So now you have these American companies, primarily, there's Europeans too, but it's primarily American, that have control, their elite have control of Canada's industries, not just oil and gas. There are industries. So along comes this guy named Trump, right? We can call him Orange Guy if you want. I don't care if you like him or don't like him. I actually like the guy. I think he's great entertainment. I love what he's doing. So along comes Trump, and President Trump, he starts going after these elite. Right? He said, no, we're going to do this. Well, the elite, who are they? There are Democrats or liberals, the ones that the natural governing parties. So he's starting to expose their corruption, their crimes. Trudeau's no different. He's going after their proclivity for sex with children, I guess you could say, if you want to get to that point. So here we have Trudeau in Canada. So Trudeau, was put in place. I to this day, I don't believe Trudeau actually won the last election any more than I believe Obama won 2012. Right? We're looking at there's so much corruption that they're starting to prove that Trudeau's sitting there with like the Cheshire cat that swallowed the canary, and he's smiling. He doesn't care what he says or does because he believes that the fix is in for 2019. Let's find out if the fix is in or not. Right? I think the fix is in for 2016, and the same system that they used in 2016 to make sure the fix was gone. Hopefully that happens in Canada. Right? There's a little organization called the NSA. If you listen to this video, do us a favor. Thanks. A little plug. Drink Coca-Cola. Right? That's for the guys that have my bio. They understand the relationship I have with Pepsi. So drink Coca-Cola. So we're going forward on the NAFTA. Lately, we've had a big, people talking about the the pipelines and the infrastructure projects that are getting built over at the coast when it comes to our LNG project, our liquefied natural gas. And that one I got to laugh because I mean it's now suddenly they've given China this tariff free, duty free, just like the Saudi Arabia. They don't have to pay GST or nothing, right? They bring it all in. Gee, do you see what's happening? Right? So the people in Montreal and Ontario are going, what the hell's going on here? Right? I mean, we have these steel mills here and they're starving, but we can't, I mean, we should be producing that steel, but instead of allowing China to bring it in, it's tariff-free, duty-free, blah, 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 the rest it's free. Oil from Saudi Arabia, free. There's no carbon tax, there's no GST, everything's free. Bring it on in. Well, the reason they do that is because our industry, like I said, is owned by primarily sources that are affected by NAFTA, the NAFTA Chapter 11. The reason that they don't want to get to the end of the new agreement, right? The USMCA agreement. As long as NAFTA Chapter 11 is sitting there, the elite that have already screwed us as Canadians, what Trudeau's doing is he's setting up another screw, right? What he's doing is he's turning around and he's saying, okay, now I'm going to take, through government decree, right, the catalyst on whether a NAFTA 11 challenge can go forward or not is, did the government intercede through rules, regulations, or some other arbitrary body that forced you to lose profits? Well, it's obvious when the government says, okay, we're going to give you this exemption and these statuses and blah blah blah. It's kind of a yes, isn't it? It's pretty easy to get to yes. So we tried to explain in another video. So this steel is just, that's just the people that own the steel mills and the steel, people that own the mines. Again, the way Canada's set up with our foreign ownership, these are the people coming out of these other jurisdictions, and out of primarily the U.S. The oil and gas industry, primarily the U.S. What he's doing is he's setting up these huge NAFTA challenges that Canada is going to be totally immersed in. So we've already got other NAFTA challenges, but these ones are massive. We're talking multiple years GDP. If you don't think that we're already, right, screwed, right? Trudeau knows he's going to lose. Do you think he cares? The fix is in. He knows he's going to lose. So what he's doing is he's going out of his way to ensure that that he bankrupts Canada, to ensure that the UN ends up with, we end up under UN control, or we end up under somebody's control. So by doing what he's done with the steel tariffs, and then on top of this, well, they won't allow pipelines to come, but they'll allow them to come from Dawson Creek. Guess where I live? I live right here in Dawson Creek. Guess what industry I'm in? I'm in the oil and gas industry. Guess whose pipeline he's building? Petronas. Guess who's Petronas? Well, that's right. They're not the Americans, are they? They're not anybody involved in NAFTA. So, Petronas was allowed to come in and buy a section. The section they're at, this is where these pipelines are kind of specific to them. They'll have feeder pipelines they can buy off other people, but who's controlling it? So, now you look at the Kinder Morgan is going to go through. Is it? Right? At what point? You've done everything you can to prevent the Kinder Morgan from actually going through. You got to the point where you ended up buying it. So if it does go through, that's Canadian, and he's removed the Americans. But at the same time, it deals with oil and gas industry that is widely controlled by Americans. So again, now we have another NAFTA 11 challenge. We have NAFTA 11 challenge on our steel. We have NAFTA 11 challenge on our, on our mining. We have NAFTA 11 challenges on our oil. We have NAFTA 11 challenges on our gas. All these policies and procedures that the government's either ignored, right, or allowed to go forward for other industry or for other players that are not party to the NAFTA agreement. Therefore, they're in violation of the NAFTA agreement. So that's for the reason why you haven't seen a USMCA completed yet, is because Trudeau, on his way out the door, is setting us up so that Canada is going to lose multi-years of its GDP. So basically, if you think he spent money, trust me, the trillions that he's making us liable today that's the money. Now, can we stop it? Absolutely. And that's where my program comes in, where we've been trying to explain to our MPs and our MLAs and in particular our oil and gas industry, whoever will listen. Right? Our oil and gas industry are also banksters, right? So, but at the same time, they're not all liberals. I mean, there's 20, 30% of them are liberals, right? They're diehard, diehard shills that want to, that like to eat their grandmothers or eat their babies or whatever they do, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a liberal, so I don't know what liberals do. But what I can tell you is that we set it up so that, I mean, there was a gentleman in the States by the name of President Trump. Oh, yeah, you guys don't like him. Oh, well, some of you do, but the ones that don't like him, understand this. He created an executive order from December 21st, 2017. And this executive order is based on human rights abuses, right, and corruption. Anybody involved in human rights abuses, particularly what has to deal with the government, right, whether it be an individual or a group, will lose all their assets on top of the criminal charges. It doesn't matter where in the world you are, because as long as you do business remotely with America, America's being a trade dollar, pretty much everybody does business with America, therefore it applies to all of us. So what he's done is he's put this in place, and I've tried to point this out in limited ways to the industry and other people, that, hey, get your ducks in a line, don't get involved with this, to, try to keep yourself isolated from this stuff, without being too obvious. But at the same time, I report this stuff to the Americans as much as I also report it to our MPs, I report it to the PMO. I'm not specific to any one group, right? I mean, I have met the odd cute liberal girl, right? Don't get me wrong, they're far and few between. I have met the odd one, though. So, hey, you don't want to, when you're a single guy like me, you don't want to limit your opportunities here. But the reality is, all jokes aside, what's happening with Trudeau, what's happening with the steel crap coming in to build these liquefied natural gas plants, right? The pipelines, the pipeline locations, who they're going to, who they're benefiting. I mean, all these things, you start looking at them, these are setting up NAFTA Chapter 11 trade disputes. And it doesn't matter because he's set them up already, so we can go ahead and sign the agreement in November 1st of 2019. Everything's still preceded. And so really we're at the point now that we want these elite, right, that have basically already raped us once. Right? They've already taken everything, raped us once with our governments. Don't get me wrong, all governments have allowed this, right? But because of this, what they call, like Kevin O'Leary just did a piece on it, Kevin O'Leary from Dragon's Den, which I thought was hilarious, because Kevin almost got it right. Almost, except for he forgot about the NAFTA Chapter 11 challenges and the rest of them. Had he thought a little bit more in depth about what was going on and how this is working, he would have got it right. But at least he's going around trying to tell everybody, don't vote for this liberal guy, right? But that was kind of obvious. What'd you do? He says he doesn't pull any punches. He doesn't. I mean, hopefully somebody sends him this tape and he can have a little idea that, hey, Kevin, you missed this point, right? If you missed this point, we require the U.S. under that executive order from December 21st, 2017, we need Trump to implement that. So he's going to go after these elite, go after these banksters, right, for their crimes in the U.S. I think you're going to find a lot of this is all being filled in with what we're trying to see now. We're seeing the pedophile stuff coming out, and that's taking out a lot of elite. There's a lot of stuff to watch here, guys, but that's the position right now that Trudeau's putting us in. He's, if he can't destroy the country while he's in power, he's setting it up so the country's totally destroyed and bankrupt by the time he leaves power. So we're literally at the point where we're at the mercy of the U.S. and we can negotiate with a government, but we can't negotiate with these banksters. We already know that. We can't negotiate with these banksters. They shouldn't even exist. So I keep trying to express to my own government, or my own government waiting, as I call my MP, who's a conservative, I keep trying to express to him Comer versus Bank of Canada. Just look it up, right? And you understand it's sitting there on the docket, right? We might have, from what we've gone through with the judiciary in the last little bit, we have to clean some house, right? But that's fine. Just turn a blind eye. We'll have that cleaned up in a few weeks for you. You know what I mean, huh? So that's what it takes. That's what it takes. We got to do what we got to do. Anyhow, you guys have a great day. Sometimes I get a little off in the weeds, have a little bit of fun with you, but the truth is there. Now you know the rest of the story. If you want any feedback on this, give me some feedback. We'll talk about it. Anyhow, you guys have a good one. See you later.